Hey everybody, it's Jeremy. We're going to try and do a lap guide here for Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. As you can see, I'm driving the Chevrolet Corvette Z06 GT3R. Uh, this is a guide more so to focus on confidence and precision around the track. It's not necessarily a survival guide here. Um, Run some laps around the track, get familiar with some of the markers, some of the layouts. There's a couple corners. Moss Corner is one of them that's a blind entry into the second right. And if you don't know where it is, you're gonna miss it. I did the first couple times around here when I was learning the track. So it's one where you need to kind of know where you are. It's a nice flowy circuit, a lot of high-speed corners. There aren't really braking markers so much as just areas where you want to get the car settled and slowed down a little bit for entry into the corner. But it is a feel track. You need to kind of know the car that's underneath you and know what it feels like under load. That way you can power on corner exit as early as you can. You need to be able to feel that front end, especially the downhill corners. You need to know when that front end is going to give up, because if you get on the throttle too early or if you start turning in too early, you're going to wash out really hard by the time you get to the exit of the corner. I'm going to run through the lap at speed first, no commentary, we're just going to run it. I'll leave my inputs up on screen so you guys get a general idea of what I'm doing, and then I'll do a lap breakdown after that. Apologies for the Glasgow toilet that you guys hear in the background, and any kids that you might hear screaming as well. I promise they're not dying, they're just playing and having fun. Just trust me. Anyways, without further ado, we're just going to roll through it, so here we go. And across the line. Alright, so that's a lap of Canadian Tire. As you can see, we managed to pull off a 114.75 in the fixed setup. It's a pretty decent lap. I'm not too mad at it. We're going to do a little breakdown here and just show you some of the do's and don'ts around the track. There's a lot of spots that you can lose time. This isn't one of those tracks that you can gain a lot of time at. You're really only as quick as the tires are going to allow you to be, and the aero setup, because we're running fixed setups here. It's got pretty much all the downforce it can have cranked onto the thing. So it's not really aero you need to worry about, it's more that mechanical grip that you're able to get through the tires. That being said, the Corvette hates curbs, and so you'll see me avoiding a lot of these curbs like they're the devil. You can also notice here, I've cranked the brake bias back a little bit. The standard brake bias in the fixed setup is 55.1. In the Corvette, I've dropped it all the way back to 50. Well, not all the way back, but a full percentage back, all the way to 54.1. It just helps me with that corner rotation. This isn't a braking zone track. There aren't really any heavy braking zones apart from the one going into Moss Corner, really. And so you don't need the brakes too far forward. I found that keeping them further back helps a lot, since this is such a high-speed, flowy circuit. Obviously, like I said at the beginning, these brake markers are going to vary a little bit from car to car. Your line may vary a little bit from car to car. This is just more so a general guide of what's quick around here and some things to avoid. Not necessarily stuff that you want to do, more so things you don't want to do. So coming into this final section here, it's a great rhythm section. You want to get the car over to the right to set up this left-hander. Again, you can see me avoiding this curb. Down into third, the nice slow downshifts. You want to let the car roll as much as you can. Don't come down too fast. You don't want to get on the brakes too hard. You see I'm not even on the brakes. I'm on the throttle at this point. We're almost up to full throttle. I keep it in third. You want to keep the car over to the left side of the road as best you can here. Avoiding this grass and this dirt on your turn in to the right. If you touch the grass and dirt over here, it's going to really unsettle the car. All of your weight is on the left side tires when you start to transfer over here. You can see I get on the brakes a little bit here, mainly just to get the weight transferred back to the front of the car, because we were just under such a heavy acceleration period coming out of that left. You want to get the weight transferred back to the front and set up this right-hander. It's a sweeping right, but it's a tightening kind of sweeping right. It's almost 90 degrees. It's just like a loose 90 degrees. Again, avoiding this grass and dirt on the outside here, but you can see I was pretty close to the white line when I started my turn in, and we're avoiding this curb here on the inside. The only two cars that I've seen make it through there alive and gain speed when they attack that curb is the Beamer and the Porsche. The BMW gets really squirrely coming over the top of it, so that's kind of an iffy one, and the Porsche is just one of those weird cars with bumps. It just likes them for whatever reason. Almost every other car gets really unsettled by that curb on the inside here. You might be quicker to the line, but it isn't quicker by the time you get to the end of the straight, if that makes sense. It's a really short front straightaway here, so you might be able to get a little bit of gain temporarily to get to where the start-finish line is, but it isn't faster over the course of the full straightaway. You'll see I'm avoiding this curb. I just kind of snake around the outside of it, and once we get to the exit here, you'll see we get a whole lot of runoff to play with. Again, we're just keeping it in third gear, just kind of floating the car. I'm really hard on the throttle here, just kind of seeing where I'm at coming into the corner. Right here you can see we're starting to pick up some of the curb on the outside, and you can see where we're at, but look at how much the car is bouncing through here, and I didn't even touch the curb. It's just the way the road kind of undulates through there. It unsettles the front of the car. I'm at a lot of steering angle. I'm opening it up a little bit, but you can see the car is just kind of drifting and floating out here to the left hand side. This exit of the final corner, setting up your lap, you can use a lot of this runoff area here. You just got to keep your right side tires on the track. They can be on the white line, they can't go over the white line. So if you have the full car to the left of this white line here, it's an off track. Anything else is fair game, and so you can maximize your speed down this straightaway by utilizing some of this runoff here. You can see I'm pretty much straddling this red and white curb, and you'll notice as the race goes on, there's going to be tire marks and grooves that start to form in the dirt and the grass on the outside of this little curbing area here. The really quick guys all utilize this area. You kind of have to if you want to be able to maximize your speed down this little mini front straightaway. So we carry the speed over here, fourth gear, cross the line, up into fifth. That isn't really a braking zone so much for turn one here. We're keeping the car all the way over to the left-hand side. And then you can see I just kind of dabbed the brakes. We only get up to about 30, almost 40%, and then I'm right back off of them and onto the throttle. You can go down into fourth here. I keep it in fifth just because the Corvette likes to roll. It's got a really good power band, and so I can just get on the throttle, and even though I'm not at peak power, I've still got a lot of horsepower at my disposal. And we're already at full throttle here. We're miles away from the apex and already committed. You want to avoid going too far to the inside here. If you huck it in too tight, it gets really bumpy once you get past this curb area, and it can unsettle the car and really compromise your exit. You also don't want to get on the throttle too early. You don't want to turn in too early. It's kind of a knowledge-based corner. You need to know your point of no return, really, because if you do commit too soon, you run off really early here, or you start to aim at like this section of the curb, and it absolutely compromises this downhill section into the left that we're about to make. I just kiss it on the outside here. It's just a little touch, and then we're rolling on to this left-hander. It's just a dab on the brakes again. I'm always tempted to go up into 6th, but then that just means another gear change, and so I usually keep it in 5th. You can see a little bit of ABS kicks on because the car gets so light through here. You're coming up over a ridge, so you want to get the car slowed down before you hit the crest. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get it slowed down. There's a massive runoff down here on the right-hand side. It's all grass for the most part, and it just leads into a tire barrier. Because it's such a steep downhill, if you do end up going off, you're going to go off hard. You're not really going to be able to get the car stopped, and it's going to slam into the wall. So you want to make sure you get the car slowed down up here at the top of the hill as best you can. Not all the way. You know, you don't need to stop. Again, I'm only at like 30-40% brakes. The only reason ABS kicked in is because the car gets light coming up over the crest. You just need to get that weight transferred to the front of the car so that you have that confidence in the front end to turn it in. I go down a gear just to help with rotation. You can keep it in 5th or whatever gear you enter the corner in, as long as you're in the power band coming out of it. I've found that too high of a gear can often push the car too much going into the corner, and it'll mean you don't have that confidence to get on the power. You're kind of hesitant and worried about what the exit's going to look like. So I go down a gear just to boost that confidence through the corner. So you can see I'm down into 4th, but back on the throttle. Braking is mainly just kind of to make sure the nose is going where I want it to. And as soon as I can tell that we're not going to wash out into the death zone over here, I'm hard onto the throttle and just hooking it in. You don't want to turn in too tight because, again, there's bumps on the inside of a lot of these corners that unsettle the car. You don't want to run out too wide. You can't really tell, but the dirt and grass here is kind of ridged. And so if you hook a wheel off, even just over onto that patch, it wants to pull the car further into the grass. And so the small off track, a small little mistake can turn into a bigger one, especially because you're going through here really quickly. You're on the throttle, and there isn't much room. If the car starts to go through here, you're never going to be able to get it stopped in time to not hit that wall down here at the end. So we swing far out to the right and then try and get it back over to the left. This is another one of those corners where you don't really brake. I'm only going up to like 60% here and just kind of floating the car through the corner. We're aiming for the back side of this curb. Where the curb ends is where we want to apex, if that makes sense. We're already picking up the throttle here. You want to make sure that as you're coming into the corner, you're floating the car as deep into the corner as you can. Minimize your braking. It's a progressive kind of opening right-hand turn. And that's why you want to apex it as late as possible. If you turn in too soon, too hard, and if you brake too hard, the back end of the car is going to come around because the road falls away towards the outside as you get further into the corner. And so you need to have your speed shed early, but not too much of it. It's a floaty kind of corner. A lot of the turns here at Canadian Tire benefit from having a little bit of slide in the rear end. Not full loss of grip. You just want to feel the back end, like it needs to feel like it's almost touching the ground, if that makes sense. It helps a lot with that rotation through the corners. And as long as you can modulate your throttle, you don't need to worry too much about wheel spin on exit. Just don't punch it like a maniac and you should be okay. So we're keeping it to the left over here. You can see we get on the brakes and we're working our way down, trail braking into the corner. Down a gear into 4th. The blips on the throttle are to help with the downshifts in the Corvette. It likes to lock the wheels if you downshift too quickly. You can see we're just kind of dancing our way towards that inside curb, trying to keep the car nice and floated. Not over-rotated. We're trying to maintain our speed and float through here as best we can. Again, it's a high-speed, flowy track. We're down into 3rd, and we're avoiding this inside curb. If we touch this inside curb, it's going to push us out wide, and it's going to compromise our exit. You can see the road's kind of tightening here. It looks like it's tightening, but it actually kind of opens up. It's a little deceiving. It's weird. There's not really any other way of describing it, but we're hard on the throttle here. We're working our way up through the gears. You're going to see me grab 4th as soon as I get the car kind of straightened out a little bit more. And then we're on to the high-speed downhill left. Just a little kiss of the curb on the exit. Now this section here, coming into this left-hander, pretty much every car can take it flat out. You can do a little lift of the throttle for confidence. You want to avoid cutting too far to the left here. If you dip your wheels off into this curb, it is not like Initial D. You don't do a gutter run. The car usually hooks around on you, and you end up in these tires. Or if you're a pro, flipping through the Acura sign. On the flip side, if you go too far out to the right and try and hook it in, the car carries too much inertia down the hill, and it can really unsettle the rear because of these bumps that you get to when you hit this little patch of concrete. You can see there's a patch down here. It gets kind of bumpy in the valley at the bottom there, and if you're too far out, angling over to the left, the car will get unsettled and snap. So you kind of need to keep it just on this white line as best you can. A little to the right of the white line doesn't hurt, but you don't want to go too far out into no man's land over here, and you definitely don't want to straddle that white line if you can avoid it. We're working our way down here. I've seen all the front engine rear wheel drive cars struggle through here. BMW, Mercedes, Aston, the Mustang. Those usually benefit from a confidence lift for the first couple laps until you feel your way through here and you can really like give it the beans. But as you can see, we're avoiding this, like there's a massive like little curb here and a dip and then another curb. And so if you mess up and end up on the inside here, you're along for a ride. You go bouncing over all sorts of stuff. The car gets kicked up in the air and it lands sideways. It's a mess. So you want to carry as much speed as you can through here, but if you do need to lift, err on the side of caution, because if you screw it up, you're going to screw it up big. We're driving into a T-junction, basically. It's two 90-degree rights up ahead of us, and so there's no runoff. There's no room for error. If you drop it under braking into Moss Corner or halfway through Moss Corner, you're never ever going to get it back, and you're going to crash hard. So here we're coming into Moss Corner. You'll see as soon as I get the car straightened up, and I'm lined up with the left side of the track here, I get on the brakes hard. This is the hardest braking zone of the track, and it is the most important braking zone of the track. This is where a lot of lap time is lost and gained. These two slow right-handers, they're very similar to the right-handers at VIR. You can see I'm here at almost 100% brake pressure. Haven't engaged ABS. We're still just coasting. We're chilling. Little bit of angle on the wheel to get the car rotated in. You want to get this car slowed down as much as you can for this first right-hander. As you can see, the road does not exist anymore coming up over the hill. The car will not be able to stop once we get past this curb. So if you haven't slowed down, by the time you get through this first right-hander, you will not be able to slow down for the next right-hander, and you're just going to go into the wall. Because of the runoff area not existing over here, it's just a concrete wall and grass. You're going to go into the wall hard, and it's usually going to end the race. So you want to make sure you can get the car slowed down as much as you can for this first right-hander. I drop down into third, and then you'll see as I'm cresting over this little section in between the two rights, I drop down into second. You want to time your downshifts late in the turn, low in the RPM band. If you downshift too high in the RPM band, it transfers the weight too much. It can lock up the rear tires a little bit, and if that happens through this section, the back end's going to come around 100% of the time. So you want to be nice and smooth on your downshifts, nice and smooth on your braking, and float the car in. You can see I get up on the curb just a little bit, but not too much, and we're looking for this non-existent right-hander that's coming up. There's going to be a curb on our left here. You can see we're still up on this ridge and we can't even see the road. The road has just now started to appear out in front of us. This curbing over here on the left is what we're aiming for. You want your left wheels to line up with this curb, and so you're driving towards, again, like an invisible right-hander that's going to appear over ahead of us. This second red block is what I normally aim at for my turn-in point. And so this second to last red block right here, once my nose is kind of coming even with that red block, I want to be hooking it in for this right-hander. You can see this discolored section of asphalt here. It's actually a concrete patch that they've put into the track because of the ice and stuff they get up here in Canada. But that concrete patch is actually like a really rubbery, really grippy section of road as well. And so you want to kind of keep your left side tires on that patch of the road if you can. You can be a little bit past it if you miss it. You definitely don't want to be too far inside. You'll see the curb that we're driving towards into this right is really aggressive, and if you hit it too hard, it completely compromises your run up the hill. This corner is super important because it opens up onto the only straightaway this track really has. It's a long run up a hill, so if you mess up your exit of Moss Corner here, it's really going to hurt you climbing the hill for the rest of the lap. We get out here to the left-hand side, and you can see as my nose is coming even with that red block, we're really committing to the turn-in. I'm still trail braking a little bit, but as soon as I can tell that the car is rotating, I'm back on the throttle. And you feel it in the front end. You can tell that you're going to be able to make this run through the corner, and you're just back on the power. You need to get back on the power as soon as you can. I'm in second gear here. It's really easy to pick up some wheel spin, so you need to modulate your throttle as best you can do while still maximizing that exit. You need to get on the gas hard, but not so hard that you induce wheel spin. It's that nice little sweet spot where as long as your tires are warm, you can usually punch it pretty early. As long as you open up that steering, you need to feel the weight of the car and kind of lead it around the corner. On exit, you can see there's this little kind of dimple in the concrete. It's this weird like butt crack they've got here next to the red and white stripes. That is the Canadian launch ramp. If you run out too far wide and catch that with your tires, it kicks the car up in the air. Not enough to necessarily spin you around, but enough to where you're going to lose acceleration. You're probably going to get a little wiggle on and have to back out of the throttle, and it's going to wreck your run up this hill. So you want to try and make sure that as you're coming out of that corner and accelerating, you can kind of hook the car to the right and avoid that dimple. If you're going to hit it, just hit it and bear it, but just be ready for it to bounce you all over the road. I try and avoid it at all costs. I'd rather lift a little bit and avoid that bump than hit the bump and have to back out of it completely by the time I get further into the straight. And so you can see we almost catch it. This is about as close as you want to get to it without touching it. The car, you can see it bounced a little bit, but not too much. It just lifted that left front tire just a hair. Not enough to unsettle it. We're still getting a good run up the hill here. We're just working our way up through the gears on the left side of the road. We're going to work back to the right here. It's kind of floating in the middle. You can see the road kind of slopes down to the right. So we're going to follow that path of least resistance and just hug the right-hand side. Minimal steering inputs. We're trying to not shut off any speed if we don't have to. Climbing a really big hill here. The Corvette's strong, lots of power, and so it excels as long as you get a good exit running up the mountain. And now we come to my favorite section of the track. This little rhythm section here is one of those decelerating rhythm sections. It's kind of similar to Suzuka, where each corner you hit, you're carrying less and less speed into. It's also similar to the corner segment at Silverstone. You want to keep the car over to the left-hand side here. You can see I get up onto the brakes, but not too much. We're only about 60-70%. It's mainly just to get the car settled and oriented the way I want it to. I can't remember if I mentioned it or not, but I'm running 54.1% brake bias here. The standard setup and the fixed setup for the Corvette is 55.1, so I've dialed it back a little bit. It could afford to go back even further once the tires are warm all the way and I've burned off some more fuel. This was only lap 10. So 54 was enough to get the rotation I needed. I noticed the rear tires weren't heating up enough. So we're going to work the car in here. We keep it over to the left as best we can. You can touch the grass on entry here. It doesn't unsettle the car too much just because how fast you're going. The car's got a lot of aero load, so it doesn't even really feel any of the grass that you touch. But you can see I avoid it. We're just kind of floating the car around here. The braking's just to kind of feel that rotation. You can see I'm judging how much the car is rotating as I'm feeding in the brakes. And as soon as I can tell we're sliding the way I want it to, we're kind of rotating through this corner, we're back on the throttle. Not all the way. just enough to kind of guide it, because what we want to do, again, this is one of those curbs that we're aiming for the back side of this curb. It's like non-existent, you can't see it. That's why I said this lap guide is more for like, go drive this track a couple laps so you can see these curbs that I'm talking about, and you can kind of build a reference in your mind's eye, because you need to see what isn't there, right? It's not there yet. It's going to be there. You're going to get to that point, but right now you can't see it. It's like right here on the other side of the hill. And so we're aiming at this invisible point. You can tell I'm really committed. We're hard on the throttle here because this is one of those, like, this is the highest speed corner for this section. So you want to carry as much speed into it and through it as you can. We're backing off the throttle a little bit. So that's that point that we're aiming at right here. We don't want to hit the curb because it's going to push us too far to the left. We just want to miss it. But we're setting up this left-hander right here. So we want to keep the car as far to the right as we can. Again, avoiding this dirt and this grass. You can see this darker patch here. You just follow the racing line. I'm down a gear into fourth, but again, not really hard on the brakes, just kind of enough to get the weight transferred onto the front. We're down into third. And again, we're aiming for this curb, but we don't want to hit it. We just want to like graze it, because if we hit too much of it, it pushes us out to the right side here. We need to get the car set up over to the left to maximize our entry into this right-hander. I'm hard on the throttle. I don't go up into fourth. We just tack it out in third, and then back on the brakes to get the car like settled in and rotated. But that's the only purpose of it. We don't really need to slow down too much. We just need to get the car settled and rotated, and then pick up the throttle really early for this final corner, because we need to maximize that run. You can see here I'm already back on the throttle, and we're nowhere near the corner, right? This is that point where you can feel that the car is rotating. The braking, I just modulate a little bit, and then you're climbing this hill, but you don't want the car to wash out too much. You can see this dirt rut that we dug with our last exit setting up this lap, and that's what we're aiming for. And so we just want to line up our left side tires with that as best we can, keep the power down, and set up our next lap. That's a basic breakdown of a lap around Canadian Tire. Obviously there's some stuff I missed. It can always be better. This is just a general guide. Again, the lap wasn't perfect, and I'm no coach. This is more so just to get people that haven't driven here more comfortable with the track, or to give people searching for a little bit of time possible leg up. I appreciate you guys watching if you stuck around this far, and I'll catch you on the next one. See ya.